Welcome to Soul of Persia, where the oldest stories on earth still whisper timeless truths to every generation. Every civilization has a beginning, a first king, a first kingdom, a first dream of peace. But every dawn casts its own shadow. And before humanity could learn how to build the world, it would first have to learn how to stand against darkness. This is where the Shahnameh begins. Long before cities rose from stone, before kingdoms stretched across continents, before history began recording the names of rulers, the world was still young. Mountains ruled the horizon, rivers carved their own paths through untouched valleys. The wind wandered freely across a land where civilization had yet to leave its mark. Then, according to the Shahnameh, one man stepped forward and changed the course of human history forever. His name was Keyumars, the first man to wear a crown, the first to sit upon a throne, the first king the world had ever known. With him, order emerged from uncertainty. A kingdom was born, not behind towering walls, not beneath golden domes, but among rugged mountains, beneath the endless sky, where nature itself seemed to guard the first throne on earth. Keyumars wore the skin of a leopard across his shoulders, as though the wilderness itself had crowned its first ruler. His people turned their hearts toward the worship of one God. They embraced a shared way of life. Peace slowly took root among them. Days passed quietly. The wind whispered through the cliffs. Morning light spilled across the valleys, and life moved with the calm rhythm of an untouched world. For a brief moment, humanity believed peace might last forever. Among all who stood beside the king, no one was dearer to him than his son. Siamak, young, wise, handsome, the prince destined to inherit the world's very first crown. Yet what bound father and son together was greater than royal blood. It was trust, it was love, a bond so deep that words were hardly needed. The future appeared certain. The kingdom flourished. Hope filled every horizon. But beyond those peaceful mountains, something else had begun to awaken. Far away, in another land, lived a demon consumed by envy. Every whisper of Keyumar's name fed the fire within him. Every tale of the first king deepened his hatred. He could not bear the thought that another ruled the world, while he remained in darkness. One desire consumed him completely: to overthrow Keyumars, to seize the crown, to claim the throne for himself. His jealousy could no longer remain hidden. Again and again he spoke of his hatred, until everyone around him knew the darkness that ruled his heart. Whispers slowly became threats. Threats became certainty, and certainty became war. But the demon would not come alone. He had a son, enormous in strength, wolf-like in appearance, as merciless as his father. While darkness prepared its champion, the heavens sent a warning. One day, a radiant messenger descended from above. It was Sarush. His presence brought calm. His message did not. He stood before Keyumars and said, "The demon has set his eyes upon your crown and your throne. Prepare yourself. The time for battle is near." Only a few words, yet they changed everything. The peaceful days of the world's first kingdom were coming to an end. The moment Siamak learned of the danger threatening his father's kingdom, he did not hesitate. He stepped forward and bowed before the king. Then he said, "Father, allow me to lead our warriors. Let me meet the enemy before darkness reaches our home." Keyumars looked upon his son with both pride and concern. But he knew that some roads cannot be walked by another. He gave his blessing. Warriors gathered from across the kingdom. Weapons were raised beneath the open sky. The army prepared to march. None of them knew that destiny had already written the ending of the battle they were about to fight. Across the mountains, beneath an endless sky, the two armies finally faced one another. The wind that had once carried only birdsong now carried the echoes of war. The earth trembled beneath marching feet. Silence gave way to steel. Hope stood face to face with hatred. And the first great battle in the history of mankind was about to begin. The battle erupted with a force the young world had never known. Steel clashed against steel. The mountains answered with thunderous echoes. Dust rose into the sky until earth and heaven seemed to disappear beneath a single cloud. At the heart of the battlefield stood Siamak. He fought with the courage of a prince and the devotion of a son. Not for glory, not for power, but to protect the peace his father had built. Yet darkness had brought its fiercest champion. The demon sun surged through the battlefield like a ravenous wolf. Where he passed, chaos followed. Soon, the two warriors stood face to face. For one brief moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then they collided. The battle was fierce. Neither yielded, neither stepped back. But fate had already chosen its course. The demon sun struck the final blow. Siamak fell. His body was torn apart. His heart was ripped from his chest. The prince who was meant to inherit the world's first throne lay silent upon the earth. And with him, the first great sorrow entered the story of humankind. When news reached Keyumars, grief overwhelmed him. No father should have to bury his child, not even the world's first king. The crown could not ease his pain. The throne could not comfort him. He wept, not as a ruler, but simply as a father who had lost the son he loved. His people mourned beside him. The royal court fell silent. Songs gave way to tears. For an entire year, the kingdom wore the color of sorrow. It seemed as though even the mountains grieved with their king. Then, after a year had passed, heaven spoke once again. Sarush returned. His light pierced the silence that grief had left behind. He looked upon Keyumars and said, "Enough mourning, enough tears. Gather your warriors. Justice still waits to be done. Rise and avenge your son." The words were not cruel. They were a reminder. Grief deserves its season, but it must never become humanity's final destination. There comes a moment when sorrow must give way to courage, when tears must give way to action, when justice must stand where despair once stood. Keyumars raised his eyes once more. The first king had not forgotten his pain, but now his pain had found its purpose. Before Siamak had left this world, he had entrusted it with one final gift, a son. His name was Hushang, the boy who would carry his father's blood, and one day change the course of civilization itself. But that is a story for another time. The Shahnameh opens not with an endless string of victories, but with a heartbreaking loss. Ferdowsi reminds us that civilization is not built only by kings who wear crowns. It is built by those willing to sacrifice everything to protect what is right. That is why the story of Keyumars is far more than the tale of the first king. It is the story of humanity's first encounter with envy, its first experience of grief, and its first decision to answer darkness not with surrender, but with courage. Perhaps every generation must face its own Ahriman, and perhaps every generation must choose whether fear will shape its future or hope. If this ancient story spoke to you, help us keep these timeless legends alive by leaving a like. And if you'd like to explore more of the Shahnameh, and the extraordinary wisdom of Persian civilization. Subscribe to Soul of Persia and join us on this journey through history, myth, and meaning. In our next episode, a young prince named Hushang will rise to avenge his father, defeat the forces of darkness, and unknowingly uncover a gift that will forever change the destiny of humankind. Now we'd love to hear from you. What do you think is the greatest lesson in Keyumar's story? Is it the danger of envy, the pain of loss, or the courage to stand against darkness? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd be honored to read them. Until then.